time. Or hasn't been here for years and years. If so, have you stand up and tell us who you are and where you're from?
Gary and Helen McChesney from Alberta, Canada. It's actually, Canada's only border city. We're right on the border of Saskatchewan.
You said it's about 20-hour drive. To get over to stand with all the masters, so.
If you won't stop for gas and refreshments.
They came just for PRAS though, yeah.
Right, yeah. That's getting right close to, like I said, like I told them, it's getting close to the record for distance. So we have Seattle, California, maybe we got other countries at some point, but we're all on live, keep going on live. On those that are on there, you won't be able to see me, but hear me. And then you will be able to see the program when that comes up and hear our speakers too, so. So welcome to everybody. Anybody else? Did I miss anybody? No? How about your granddaughter? Is that your granddaughter, Lorraine?
My granddaughter's 4.
4.
Oh. This is her first time.
First time. Did she have a favorite bird?
What's your favorite bird?
Chickadee.
Oh.
I love that one. So you're gonna go chickadee, dee, dee. It says it's game, doesn't it? Well, welcome. Anybody else? Miss anybody? Okay, fantastic. Francis tells us, our treasurer, that we have $8,117.50 in our account. And our bird feed account is down $379.62, which we'll make that up November. We start the feeders at George Wythe, and we already have them going on at hospice and the Cedar Falls Visitor Center, so those are ongoing. So, so I woke up the other night, middle of the night, and I thought, gosh, did I pay my birdathon? And I got up and looked at my checkbook. I hope I didn't see it. Here I am, you know. Then I got thinking, am I a member? I don't remember like even getting a renewal thing. So I looked online, which you can do too. We have the chapter services, but if you ever have any doubt where you stand, you can call National Audubon and they'll look it up for you. But I looked up me. Sometimes some of us never get a renewal notice, and some of you guys get 10 of them, you know, on the whole month. But thankfully, I'm sorry, and then so I gave Francis the check. He says, "You already paid." He says, "Well, I wasn't in there, you know." So anyway, I forget stuff. Maybe you do too. So if you've forgotten whether you're a member or not, you don't have to be here. Or like. Think you forgot to make a donation for the bird pond or just for PRAS. It's never too late. That's what I'm telling you. Even when you wake up in the middle of the night, like me. Yeah. So anyway, so with that money, Tom Moon has taken the initiative over at George Wythe at the Canfield Theaters. You know, that's all been reset. They've redone the parking lot, and so our board has put aside a pretty good chunk of money to redo the theaters, so that they're turkey proof, animal proof, and we worked with the park ranger Lori out there to help us out. And we're designing signs right now to put there to invite the community to help support our bird feeding. But you can donate, go to our website and do that. And they're making right by that bird feeder area, they put a big brush pile for us for birds right to the prairie area right next to it. And then they're also putting up a great big, pretty good size, Tom, isn't it? That
yes,
box. It's like a big storage.
it's the size of that piano.
Yeah, at least, laying down,
Yeah.
you know, if it shift it over. And, you know, it's up so high, and we'll be able to put garbage cans of feed in there, and then we'll have a volunteer system going with a combination lock. And we'll work on getting that information out on their website or so, maybe with a Google Doc or some way to keep this organized. But they're working on it, and, they'll have like a lift and a ladder to be able to get up in there, all this stuff stored in there, so we can keep those feeders with other volunteers. Maybe you know somebody who wants to do that too, let them know, but that's the kind of thing where your money goes, and we're thankful that the, George Wythe from this, park there is willing to donate some, materials and efforts to help get that done, so. Did I miss anything, Tom?
No, it's good.
Okay, all right, pretty good. And a couple of weeks ago, we participated in the first, I think it's gonna be annual Youth Fest at Cattle Congress. And it was in the agriculture building is what it was. And I want to thank Charlene and Ken and Barb and David for helping volunteer and maintaining that from 10 to 3. They didn't get a lot of people coming through, but that was kind of good. In a way, it enabled people to stop and do hands-on things. Someone was with owls, owl pellets, puppets that, and I got another thing that we gave a grant for bird puppets. And so thank you for that. There's another event coming up in the Waterloo Public Library in first part of November. I think the date. I think it's a Friday in the morning. It's maybe the first Friday in November. So, okay. So today treats are by Phyllis McKee, Candace Habley, Donna Kirster, Tom Moon, a little bit from me, and Candace Habley. And we have a couple, and thank you. So we have good stuff to eat afterwards and talk, as you all well know. So on this sheet here, there's a few places left for next month for drinks, and one on there. And then you flip the page for 2025, and look at that. It's blank. So you could feel free to think ahead, and you will get a phone call to remind you. You know, I need like 3 phone calls to remind me, I think. So I'll pass this around. If you're willing to help out in one of those, do that. Appreciate it. Thank you.
A little information.
Yes.
Phyllis and I might have put my name down.
What should we be going for first over there that you bake?
Chocolate.
Can't go wrong with those chocolate chip cookies, homemade.
My expertise.
Works, though, it's a favorite, you know. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thanks. So, I went, who's an entomologist at you and I, has an important announcement. She got an email today about protecting the marsh, and I'll turn it over to her.
Thank you. So I think I know a few of you, but then I'm relatively new here. My name is I teach I teach biology, I teach entomology. So I had joined a few of the trips, and I really like, this group of people, which, like birds, like insects, all kinds of natures. So I got an email from this morning that's from a colleague that just retired, Kamiar Shenyan. I think some of you might know him. He was the head of the Center for Environmental CEEE at UNI. He was on the city council a few years ago, or many years ago. So he sent an email to us and say, oh, there is a new proposed development that's going to convert the wetland that's south of First Street, a little west of the shopping area, Thunder Ridge, west of Thunder Ridge, and then east of the Union Road. There's a winding Ridge Road or something. There is a really little sliver of wetland there. So they're going to propose tomorrow is the zoning and planning meeting at the city hall, that to convert that from agriculture to residential, and then a developer is going to develop a residential area there. It's about 2.5 acres, so not huge, but it's one of the remaining wetland that's in town. So he sent an email, not really asking me to do anything. He just said, well, if you have any idea what we can do now. So that's thinking, well, here's an all-about meeting tonight. I might come here to make people aware of this is happening. If we can, we're not trying to alienate anyone, but then if we can work with the developers, if they do develop it, but then somehow without compromising this wetland, build their houses, but then leave the wetland there, so we can have the birds and insects and still live there. So if we could make it to, some of you can make it to the zoning meeting tomorrow, that would be great. Just start a conversation with the city, with the developer. Or they will have a public hearing, I think, they don't have a date yet, but that will come up. And then, so if some of us can be there to talk to them about why it's important to have wetlands. You know, again, this is a conversation we want to start with the developer. And I think the more people that we can make aware of that, the easier, the better that we can work with this stuff. So that's why I was thinking of Tom right away. I was like, well, Tom, can I talk about this tonight? He said, sure. So yeah, thank you for this opportunity and then you guys are aware of that.
You know what time that meeting is?
Tomorrow, I think the zoning meeting is 5:30 to 7, something like this. We have a few things on the agenda, I look on the website, and this is like the second to last, so it wouldn't be the first thing to talk about.
Is that land public?
The website says it's owned by some kind of committee, so I don't think it's public, but then you can go there to walk around.
I can't.
Yeah, but then right now it's agricultural, but then it's gonna become, you know, residential, so. I don't think it's public land, but then no one cares, you know, it's a wetland.
Okay.
We're working on the ordinance and stuff, so.
So we can send that map, canvas, I have it on my email, and maybe we can put it somewhere. If you want to look at where this actual place is. Maybe, will that work or something, maybe?
Yeah,
Or, you know.
I can put it on the homepage.
Okay,
Yeah.
for now, it's there, and you can look and maybe go out. Well, thank you.
So that reminds me of some stories. Here I go. The importance of the public, getting involved with things like this, because it's really easy to get rid of a wetland. You know, really easy for the engineer to do this, cut this down and stuff until people stand up. You know, the Engeldinger Marsh, remember that story over by Des Moines? The 4-lane highway was built right up to it. And the DOT was, we're gonna put that through, no, there was a big fight, long fight about saving that. And what it took was somebody, I think they have 450 species, some are endangered. Was somebody actually found a rare butterfly, I think it was endangered, it was a skipper, I think it was Dakota's, I don't know, I'm not sure, I couldn't find the name of it. But that's what stopped it, finally, you know, and then better go back and then keep, you know, looking at Eddyville Dunes. You know that one, it was Cargill, was gonna put a highway right through the middle of that. They got box turtles there and the green orchid and some rare lizards and other plants, it's a really unique ecosystem. Built right up to it, we need to do this, no public outcry again. And it was changed, they moved the road around. So you do have a say, even at the Big Woods Lake, you know, about the trail. That hearings, and there was a lot of people that showed up. So I think number one, if you get a chance to go out there, I think I will too, just to see what's there. And start making a list and find something interesting, it might make a difference. And so if you look at it, and Ken and I have been going out to the mitigation properties some of you looked at. Believe it or not, it's 3 years now, they've developed this wetland and things. We thought maybe we'd get 400 or 500 species, we're close to 900 species of plants, insects, butterflies, birds, about 179 bird species. And we're still going, we're still finding more stuff. And it's because you build it, they will come. You save it, they'll come. So make your voice known and get out and vote. And for the people that care about these things, both locally and federal too. Okay. So we got a bunch of free stuff over here on the table. Some cards, some city maps. There's a list of all their programs for the year. Please take those to hand out to people that may not have email or might be of interest. It's a two-sided page. It's been updated since last time. And the November speaker next month had a back out suddenly because of some health problems that just came up from Iowa State. So maybe we get him next year. We felt sorry about that, but David Voigt stepped up for us, and we should have had you a long time ago. David does our What's in the Sky, and he does he's our conservation chair. And he does letters to the editor. He probably read a lot of this stuff. So he's going to do an intro to astronomy. This will be a really interesting program for us all, like looking in the skies for birds and other things. Silent auction next month. And so, what are you seeing out there? I know somebody said they saw their first junco. How many have seen the junco? Yeah, you do October 1st. Yeah. And so what else have you seen out there?
I need some help.
Okay,
Well, I went to Prairie Lakes about a week. Just because I was driving in to park. A great big pelican landed right in front of me, and it was clearly a pelican. But it was all by itself. So I thought, well, I'm gonna be walking around the lake, I'll keep my eye open. Maybe this is a scout. It's usually there. It's big. And about 20 minutes later, I look up in the sky and I can count 39 really big birds starting to circle. And if you've seen pelicans starting to circle to land, there's kind of a way that they do it. It sort of looked like that. And they got so far, and I'm thinking they're looking for their scout. And they just turned around and headed northeast. So I thought, okay, I decided to go to Big Woods instead. I can see them there. But I took some pictures of them because it was sunset and I wasn't seeing black tips of the wings. I couldn't see them really. I submitted it to Merlin, and Merlin said, parents, I have never seen 39 parents together. They didn't look like parents. But could they have been parents? Or was Merlin just having a hard time?
my thought is it's the 80% to 20% rule. 80% of the time, it's pretty accurate. 20% of the time, it's can be way off. If you think you saw a pelican, I'm gonna guess you saw a pelican, but especially when the way you describe it. What are your thoughts? Anybody else?
I looked on the sightings and I didn't see the list from last Wednesday's.
I think they're around, and then you'll get a loaner sometimes, and they do just that. They look like great big cargo planes. Sort of, and they'll circle around, and sometimes they'll just take off. But it's an interesting point. And I thought you were gonna ask about the single one. Could have been a single guy or second one or something too.
Oh,
Could have scouted.
it'd be a secret.
Yeah,
But it was,
that's
that
that's
was.
a sight, when
that
you see
was-
those. You got pelicans in Iowa? Yeah. Anything else you've been seeing? Sparrows are bad, yes,
Yellow warblers.
oh, all over right now, aren't they? Right at the end of the warbler season, pretty much. Yeah,
Siskins,
siskins,
Oh, wow.
at your feeders or at the,
the feeders, then out of Prairie Lakes. both.
really?
Yeah.
I haven't seen this year yet, that's a good sight. Pine siskins, Candace.
So this is interesting. You all know that with your generosity, we have helped fund some Modus towers.
Yeah.
Where it reads the radio tags. Well, I was at a bird banding down at Indian Creek Nature Center in Cedar Rapids. And is it Neil Bornstein? Who I think is a professor at Mount Mercy or one of the two. He was one of the banders, and we had caught a wood thrush in the mist net, and he said this wood thrush had hit the Modus Tower at Wikia, and he said Black Hawk County. So I go online on our website and look it up to see which tower it hit. It happened to not be Black Hawk, but it was our Bremer Modus Tower. So that I thought was super cool that this bird was making its way south, and that I could, find that. And I have this picture of this wood thrush getting banded, and there was a young girl who was maybe 10 who had apparently studied with Neil. She was doing the band. It was super cool. She was so into it, so interested. This was not her first bird banding. So definitely a birder in the making. So, but I just thought I would share that because of the investment that we all have made in the Motus Towers and how it really does provide the data. And why it's important to have the towers kind of in that sequence, so you can see the track of it, so. Long explanation, but it was super cool.
A good story. There, Iowa DNR aided us, they're doing a study of wood thrushes, so they have to have a study in order to put those tags on. Then where they are for the small birds to find out where they're going, and they got hits. They tagged a bunch of them at Hawkins, at Hawkins Nature Center, two different ones there, I think. And if they get hits around here, it's a need to have that local thing. Anything else, Sheriff? Anything else for the good of the group? How many have been to Africa? How many want to go to Africa? You're gonna get a chance here in just a little bit. I'm so excited. I saw Linda's Rudolph as their speaker tonight, and she's a retired pharmacist. Last month, we had 3 retired pharmacists with us. I know we have at least one. We have retired pharmacists, raise your hands. Two, okay. Down, yeah. 3, all right. Fantastic. And she's retired from the University of Iowa Hospital and Clinics. And she was born in, of all places, Ithaca, New York, where Cornell Labs are, have you been back there recently?
Too long ago, they've been spending the summers in upstate New York, and if you're from upstate New York, that means north of the thruway that goes from Buffalo to Albany. So I've been spending the summers up by, between Malone and Plattsburgh, which is just like 8 miles from the Canadian border. Somebody's nodding.
And she has been around, seen birds. She's seen birds in 31 different countries and territories. And you were, as a child, you were in Africa, which
Morocco,
Morocco. How long were you there?
9 years, or 6 years.
Good memories, probably. Back then.
Yeah.
Since then, she's been back 3 times. So, and she's collecting stories. I saw some of her photos that she shared with some of the butterfly people. I thought, man, these are way awesome. This is going to be fun. We got to get her. And she agreed. Really happy to have her here, Linda. She's going, why did I do this? This would be really fun. And so her latest trip was to Kenya and Tanzania. So you guys ready? We're going to go, let's go exploring Africa.
Okay, maybe I'll move this just a little bit forward. Okay.
Oh, turn it off.
Well, it's just kind of scary to be here tonight, but it's wonderful to see so many people interested in nature and birds. That's pretty cool. So I did go to East Africa in March of 2024, so not that long ago. And you may wonder why you pick East Africa to go to. And it's kind of a little area, and it has as many birds as the entire ABA, the American Birding Association birding area. So it's really densely populated with different bird species. Also, I went with a birding tour company called Field Guides Birding Tours. And the guide that leads their East Africa trips is Terry Stevenson. And I've been to India with him before, so I know what a wonderful guy he is. I really enjoyed him. And he's actually the principal author for the birds of East Africa. So it's kind of fun to go with the authority, and especially when you know how nice he is. I just wanted to mention before I start on this presentation that there's 40 different tribes in Kenya. And many of them do not like their photos taken. They don't like their photos taken. They don't want photos of their houses taken. They don't want photos of their animals taken. So you'll notice in this talk that
Here's the thing.
there's almost nothing of that because of course I can't tell, who wants their photo taken or not taken. So I just didn't do that. And there's just, you won't see that in this talk. Just to refresh our memory, where is Kenya and Tanzania? So it's right here. Just in this little teeny part. It's a long trip to get over there. Somebody was talking to me about flying, and my flight was a little bit of an adventure getting over there. Because I went from Cedar Rapids to London, and I had my itinerary actually said long layover in London at Heathrow. I did not have enough time at Heathrow. It had poured, and the airport is always a mess, but it was horrible that day. And the first instant that I got to see where my boarding gate was, it said boarding closed in big red letters. Oh, terrible. So I thought, well, what am I going to do? So I ran to the gate, and Heathrow was such a mess. They can tell where you are, if you've landed in the airport or not. There were so many people like me frantically trying to get to the gate that they held the plane for us. So in the end, it was fine. And I arrived in Nairobi. And the other thing that's interesting about Kenya is, you see here's Somalia, and Somalia has, terrible reputation. And they've actually had several horrible terrorist incidents in Kenya from Somalia. So you land in Nairobi International Airport after these long flights, and you're met by quite a militarized group of people. It was kind of scary. They're very serious. And it's because they're so close to Somalia, they're really trying hard to prevent another problem. Because it was such a long flight, every single person in the group independently decided to fly in a day early before the trip actually started. And we stayed in the Karen Country Club, and this is it's pretty cool. This is my building, and I had the entire upper left quadrant of that building. And just like any other country club you can think of, the grounds were beautiful. And people were golfing, so of course that was, we had to stay away from the golf balls. But we all found each other and figured out how to get breakfast and all that kind of stuff. And then pretty soon we're wandering around the grounds with our field guide in hand and our binoculars, trying to find our own birds. And of course the grounds were really pretty, and we had a blast. And the other reason why I showed you this building was just almost all the places we stayed were just as nice. We really had pretty luxurious accommodations. There was no tenting or, pretty iffy things going on. The food was good too. So we're running around the grounds the very first day. We see this little sparrow that looks just like our house sparrow, kind of. But he's got this bright eye. And because of the eye, we could figure out that it was a Kenyan rufous sparrow, a really cute little guy to see. And then there were these bottle brush trees, and there were sunbirds just bopping around. I mean, just kind of like, almost like, think of like hummingbirds, just buzzing around just as fast as they can. And like hummingbirds, sunbirds nectar on flowers. So they mostly have these long decurved bills, and they're just putting the bills in and getting the nectar out. And this guy paused for just a minute, long enough for me to take a photo so that I could see that it was a bronze sunbird. A lot of sunbirds are quite iridescent, and this guy was dull, and it made it hard to ID. There was nothing no pretty feather that stuck out to let me know what it was. And then we saw this nuthatch-sized bird. And I could tell that it was a barbet. Because do you see this beak that this guy's got on him? A lot of barbets are like that. And, but he has little spots along his flank. And that's how we figured out that it was a spot flank barbet. We were just having a blast. This northern fiscal perched up for me to take a photo. And when I looked in the book, the fiscal is under the shrikes. And I think, well, why can't it be called a shrike? That always kind of annoys me when they make up a new name for a bird. It makes it hard to remember. But the reason for this is kind of cool. He almost looks like he's wearing a tuxedo. He's got black wings. Is something wrong?
Yeah, the mic's not
Your mic.
Oh,
turn off.
oh, it turned off. Sorry. Yeah, I got it
There.
on. Now I can.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, we'll keep it out.
technology.
I know it's kind of flashing. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, so the fiscal kind of looks like he's got a suit on, doesn't he? He's got the black wings and the white breast. And you have to remember that the English people lived in, came down to Kenya. And in England, the taxman wore a suit and he's called a fiscal. And that's why he's got that name. So after a long day of running around the grounds, I go back to my room and it's got this beautiful porch or patio that you could go out and look over the backyard. And in a tree, maybe like 50 or 100 feet away, I see this black shape sitting in the tree. And it's a turco. I could not believe my eyes. So turcos, this thing almost like chicken size. And turcos can be really hard to see. They eat fruit and they clamber around in the tops of the trees. And you'll see them flying. They've got brilliant red underwings, most of them. But to actually see one is more difficult. And so I was thrilled to get to see this hard lob's turco. Also on the ground, there were village weavers. And village weaver's my kind of bird. He's bright and colored. He's got bright red eyes, a black face mask. And they're called weavers because they weave a nest. So they use palm fronds or grass and they actually make a nest. And here's a nest that's more finished. And they village weavers hang their nests in trees and they nest colonially. So you'll have 8 to 100 nests in a tree. And you can imagine during breeding season, having all these really pretty yellow and black birds flying in and out of the nest. It's quite a sight. So, okay, did it quit again?
Yeah, can we use the hand mic, will that work?
Yeah, it'll work.
For what you're doing?
Yeah.
Okay, switch that.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
I can hear you. Is this all right, everybody?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Okay. So the next day, our trip finally started and we met our vehicle. So this is what we drove around in, both in Tanzania and in Kenya. And this is a 4x4 Toyota Land Cruiser. And these are really heavy beasts. They don't move fast, they're kind of lumbering and slow. But they have beautiful windows that you can slide open. And even if you have to shoot through glass, it doesn't really affect your photo too much. And they have this, you see how the top is popped up? It's called a pop top. And if the vehicle isn't going too fast, or if you're stopped, they can put the top up. You can actually stand up in the vehicle and it gives you a different angle to look out at the animals and the birds. It's really quite a wonderful thing. And we went to Nairobi National Park, which is just by the capital, Nairobi. And we immediately started to see animals. So this is an impala. They're really quite an attractive antelope. And he's got a red-billed oxpecker on his shoulder. And oxpeckers land on the animals and they're picking off mostly ticks is what they're looking for, which is kind of scary to think that there's that many ticks around. But anyway, that's what he's doing. And in this talk, almost all the photos are chronological, except for, like in this case, where I grouped all the oxpecker photos. So hippopotamus this is just a pool of water where the hippos are thick, and this is mostly what you see. It's maybe an ear or two in their backs. And here's a red-billed oxpecker just sitting right on the hippopotamus's back, right in the water, which I thought was funny. And here's some buffalo that have come down to a water hole to drink. And, you know, you can see they're getting in the water. And these are yellow-billed oxpeckers. And they almost look like they're desperate. Like, where do I sit? Where do I sit? I don't want to get in the water. So they're fun to see. They just follow the herds of animals around. The birds don't want to get wet, but the animals do, don't they? Yeah. And then we started to see more birds as we drove around. This is a gray heron, which of course looks a lot like our great blue heron. And here's a pretty little lapwing called a crowned lapwing. He's got a little white crown that goes all the way around his head. And then we got to see the gray crowned crane. I was so excited. These are really pretty birds. Of course, you know, our sandhill cranes are special, but gray crowned cranes are pretty cool. And I don't know if the laser pointer. Oh yeah, okay, you see this little guy, the little things that here in the grass. So there were 3 adults kind of foraging along, they're kind of pecking along. And you started to see these little brown things moving in the ground. And the only one I got a picture of is a larger, uglier one. But anyway, they had babies with them, they had chicks. And so we got to watch the chicks following the parents around, eating the bugs as they got stirred up. And here's a close-up that just gives you an idea of how cool these birds are with their stiff crown of yellow feathers. They've got this unlikely black tuft of feathers on their forehead and pretty blue eyes, and of course the red wattle that hangs down. They were pretty cool. Then we got to see giraffes. And it's really fun to see a giraffe just striding across the savannah. Now, other people have been into Africa. I mean, it's a pretty cool sight. Their legs are so long, they really move fast. And here's 2 walked right by our vehicle. And they're so tall, they're eating the tops of the bushes. Really fun. And here's a close-up. You can see they've got bumps on their heads and things like that. So it kind of makes them look like ugly cute. The next day we flew to Tanzania, and I didn't know this, but we went right by Mount Kilimanjaro. So that is really fun. The Mount Kilimanjaro is the tallest mountain in Africa. And if I can read this, it's 19,341 feet tall. So it's quite a large mountain. It was fun to get to see it. We landed at Mount Kilimanjaro International Airport, which is smaller than the Cedar Rapids Airport, and drove to a place called Gibbs Farm, which took 5 hours of driving. And along the way, we saw these black-faced vervet monkeys eating flowers in the tops of the tree. So that was really cool. And one little hint, if you ever go to Africa and you've got monkeys in trees over your heads, avoid walking under them because they like to poop or pee on you. So that is not where you want to be. And this is my room at Gibbs Farm. And they had a whole army of gardeners at this place, maintaining the dense foliage. And then I had a little winding path that went down to my little cabin. And it was beautiful. I mean, somebody had put their heart and soul into decorating this place. There was artwork everywhere at Gibbs Farm. This is just one example, just to show you there were statues, tiles, paintings, just a little bit of everything. So after a meal, I'm walking back to my room along this narrow path that's going down to my room. And I see a little teeny bird moving around in the dense foliage. And he comes out on the path just for a microsecond, and I get a photo. And Chris is so cute. And I showed my guy, Terry, the photo, and he says, "Oh my God, Anita, that's at Peter's twin spot. I can't believe you got a photo." And so it turns out that it's not really a bird they expected to see. So of course, everybody else in the group heard about my Peter's twin spot. So at the next opportunity, we're haunting the place where I saw him. And this path is going down a slope, and it's a very narrow path with very dense vegetation. So of course, I'm at the end of the line because I've seen this cute little guy. So we're standing there. I'm getting bored, and I kind of look up, like straight ahead of me, and this pied cuckoo came through. So that was pretty cool. And then I think, okay, what else am I missing? You know, and I'm playing like this, and I put my head up. Right over. Rose eagle owl had flown in while we were standing there. Now, these owls are bigger than a great horned owl. They earn their name eagle owl. And I mean, it was just so cool to see him. Now, it's very hard to take a photo because this is, you know, equatorial Africa, so the sun is as bright as could be, and he's sitting right up there into the sun. But I was trying, and he blinked his eye. Whoops. Uh-oh. Now we got a problem. It won't advance. There we go. Let's see if we'll do the next. No, I wonder if I'm gonna have to go over there and do it manually.
You can just tell
Oh, okay. Well, okay. I'll just tell you when to change the photo. So anyway, you can see how he's blinking his eyes?
Yeah.
And you see those pink eyelids?
Yeah.
So that's what the rose eagle owl is known for. It's for his pink eyelids. And so I was pretty happy to get a photo of that. Okay. So you can imagine there's 5 participants, and we all have our cameras. We're all jockeying for a spot on this very narrow, windy path. It's got thick vegetation. You know, you don't know if there's like a viper in the vegetation or something. So we're carefully jockeying around trying to get the best photo. And this owl just sat there. And he cocked his head one way, cocked it the other way. It's the cutest thing I've seen in a long time. Okay. Also at Gibbs Farm, there was a little pond by the dining room. And here's another weaver that we saw. This is a grosbeak weaver. You can see it's got a big, thick beak. And we saw 25 species of weavers on this trip. And I just wanted to show you that not all of them make pendulum nest. If you show the next slide, you'll be able to see he's got this single nest strung between 2 reeds, and there's the hole. It's just quite a neat nest. And that was the only one at the pond. He was the only grosbeak weaver in his garden, his territory. So after breakfast and stuff, we got together and we knew we were going to go for a walk. And we start off on this path, and we're kind of going up the hill. And pretty soon, this troop of olive baboons is following us. So you can envision this. We're bird watching. So as soon as we see a bird moving, we stop, and the baboons stop. And there's about 30 of them. And we go to the next bird spot, and the baboons get up, and they come, and it seemed to me like they were getting closer and closer. I thought it was spooky. They have big teeth. And so anyway, and you can go to the next slide. we come to a guard station and we meet our guide for the day. That's Emmanuel on the right and Flora. And Flora has this rifle. And as soon as all of them saw Flora, they scattered. We did not have any more problems with them. The reason why Flora led the way on our walk, so we kept walking for the morning. But Flora led the whole way, and that's because we were on a defined trail. And elephants and buffalo choose that trail. And so you wouldn't want to run into one of those. You know, you wouldn't want to surprise a large animal like that. They can, they can be upset at you. And this is what the African buffalo looks like. And our guide, Terry, thought they were the most dangerous animal in Africa. I'd always heard hippopotamuses were, but he thought African buffaloes were. He said they are territorial, they are aggressive, they are unpredictable. So he was happy to have Flora with us. Okay. After we were done at Gibbs Farm, we went to the Ngorongoro crater area. And so this is a vast protected area. The Ngorongoro crater is world famous because it's the largest intact, unfilled volcanic caldera in the entire world. I'm standing at an overlook, and you can see the wall on the right going around. It's 2,000 feet down to the caldera floor. And the caldera floor is about, 10 to 15 miles across. So this is a large area. And a lot of the area around the Ngorongoro crater is preserved also. So, okay. So we get to our hotel, and it's actually built into the wall of the crater. And built in such a way that it was completely unobtrusive. It was really nice. And this is the view from my hotel room. You can see there's a large lake in the bottom of this crater. Here we are at breakfast before we start out on our drive for the day. This is very typical of how we ate. It was very good food, well served, very nice. And there were 5 participants. So it was a very low guide to participant ratio. So on the way to the car park to start out for the drive, here's a double-collared sunbird that perched up for me. This is much more typical of sunbirds, very iridescent, brightly colored, really fun to see. Okay. And then this white-eyed slaty flycatcher perched up too. And we got to see them almost every day. They were really cute, very common, very active, just busy catching their flies and bugs. And they didn't seem to mind people too much. They weren't afraid. So we get down to the crater floor, and the first animal we see is this elephant. And he's big. Elephants are 15,000 pounds. They're the largest land animal. And this big bull elephant just walks right up to us practically. And he stops, okay? And he's covered in mud. And he starts rubbing his eye with his trunk. So he's busy rubbing his eye, okay? And you can see the dust starts flying. So it's really fun to see. He's getting that dust off. Okay, and then the most amazing thing in my mind happened. He breathed through the trunk, and he blew the dust off his eye. So he exhaled and he sends the dust flying. Isn't that cool? Yeah. I mean, it was really fun to see. Okay, and we got to see zebra. So I didn't know this about zebra, but in the next slide. They fight a lot. And so here's some zebra carrying on. I mean, they're fighting, kicking, the dust is flying, okay? And here he is, just craziness. And of course, if they get injured, the lions are always happy to find an injured animal. And we saw some Thompson's gazelles wanting to butt heads. And then we saw this Egyptian goose. And I kind of think of Egyptian geese as the Canada geese of sub-Saharan Africa. You can see too many Egyptian geese. The other thing that makes me think of them like Canada geese is you can also like take a pair and have them start breeding in someplace else. So if you go to Florida, you can find Egyptian geese, and they're also happily breeding in Europe. This is a fan-tailed widowbird, and he's in the marsh, and it just amazes me how much he looks like a red-winged blackbird. It's pretty cool. There were a lot of marabou stories. Now, of course, I read up a little bit before I made this presentation for you guys. And marabou storks have a 12-foot wingspan. That is the size of a wandering albatross. They are huge. And he's coming in for a landing. He's got his feet down. Whoops. And do you see this fleshy thing hanging down? It's kind of weird looking. And that's called a goer sac. And they can inflate that and it helps them make noise. That's pretty cool. Okay. Now here's a marabou stork standing up. And they can be 5 feet tall. He doesn't have any feathers on his head. And that's because he's a scavenger. And maybe because he's a scavenger, but also because he's hunched posture, the black wings and the white ass belly, they call him the Undertaker bird. And these are just some black kites that were flying around. They're also scavengers, and you see quite a few black kites in this part of the country. This is a Cory bustard. Now the grass in the Ngorongoro crater was pretty short, and you could spot one of these Cory bustards a long ways away. If you look carefully, you'll see that he's got his tail feathers pulled up to his neck. And that is his white undertail feathers. And it's like a spotlight in the grasslands. So he's standing there saying, women, come find me. He wants a female Cory bustard to come along. They're pretty cool. And this yellow-billed stork flew by, and I guess I included this picture just because he's kind of dorky looking. And what makes him more dorky is look at the next photo. Look at how he's sitting with his feet. So this guy's resting. Really something. Now, we got to see blue wildebeest. Some people go to Africa just to see blue wildebeest. These are the animals that do the large migration. They have, zebras and other things that follow them along, and they follow the range and the grass. And at one point, when they have to go from the Masai Mara to the Serengeti, they have to cross the Mara River. And that's where you've probably seen it on documentaries where the herd's coming down the bank and there are crocodiles in the water.
Yeah.
And they have to cross the crocodile infested water and scramble up the other side of the bank. And I've got several pictures of wildebeest. So here's some of the herds. Every single cow had a calf, which is pretty cool to see. They were doing pretty well. And here's just one grazing. You can see they have this hump on their back, and they also have hair hanging down. And there's something evocative or something about them that just draws you in. Here's a little calf. We found out that spotted hyena like wildebeest. So we saw several groups of probably 10 to 12 spotted hyena, and they aren't active during the day. You can see this guy's been sitting in the mud, which is pretty typical of them. But at night, they run the wildebeest herds, and they try to separate the babies, the calves from the moms. And if they do manage to separate a calf, well, that's dinner for the hyena. So And here's just another picture that I really like with the blue wildebeest going to the left and the greater flamingos going right, like a parade of animals. And just more wildebeest pictures. At one point, we saw this herd stretch to the horizon. It's everywhere you looked, there were this many wildebeest, maybe between 10,000 and 100,000. It was impossible to count. It was such a large herd. It was really fun to see. And we're continuing on our safari drive. We saw this golden jackal, which of course reminds me of a coyote. And at the car park, when we got done with our drive, this white-browed robin chat greeted us. And they're quite nice birds. We did see quite a few three-banded plovers. That's a very common plover. And they remind me of our killdeer because, you know, they're common like this killdeer. We saw northern shovelers. I love to see a familiar bird from home. Now, northern shovelers are pretty interesting. They aren't overly common in sub-Saharan Africa, but you can see them all the way across Asia and in Australia. So they're quite wide-ranging. And here's a pretty Cape teal with his pink bill. And here's a greater flamingo. Now, at the Ngorongoro crater in that big lake area, it was the banks had lots of flocks of flamingos, but our drive never took us close to that area. So this is the flamingos that we got to see were the greater flamingos. And here's the next pictures of a flamingo landing. I just wanted to show you how bright their underwings were in contrast to the soft pink of their head and neck. So the Ngorongoro crater is a completely naturalized area. There's no Maasai walking through with their herds of animals. There's nobody else there, just people driving in their safari vehicles. And we did stop at 2 bathroom areas that had a couple picnic tables, but that was the extent. There's no souvenir shops. There's nothing there except for this dirt road and animals, except in this one place where they were going to fix the road because it was being underwashed by a stream. They had this culvert laid out by the road. And don't you know it, the only lions we saw in the Ngorongoro crater area were these 2 lions that had chosen to rest by the culvert. So we thought that was really ironic, especially because this area is famous for its lion prides. So, you know, you would help to see a whole family or something like that, but we didn't get to see that. But we did see lions in other places. Here's one looking like a big house cat. I mean, he's just sound asleep, sleeping like that in the shade. This is a female, and she's probably about 20 feet up in a tree, just again, sound asleep. She probably knows we're there, but
Yeah.
she didn't open her eyes. And then here's a portrait of a lion, and you can just get a feel for how large and powerful their jaws are. You wouldn't want to mess with one of those guys. Here's the yellow-billed egret with lunch. And in the evening, after dinner, we could hear the shallows turcos. Turcos are endemic to Africa, so you want to see every turco you possibly can. And there were big trees in this turco. And of course, you can't just walk any place, you know, you're very restricted at this hotel because there's lions out there. So no wandering around. But we did the best we could, the group of us, you know, we can hear the turco calling, scurry over this place. We see this shadow flying through the trees, you know, we scurry someplace else. And we were just lucky he stuck his head out for us after about half an hour of trying to get him. And just a pretty green bird, kind of an unusual color with the red orbital. We got ready to go the next morning, and these cinnamon chested bee eaters were sitting in the car park. I love the way they've got the symmetrical pose. Bee eaters are pretty cool birds. They perch out like this, and then they fly and catch a insect that's going by. And they're very acrobatic and very accurate. They rarely miss their bug. Now, by this point, you're probably thinking every bird is beautiful. But let me tell you, there are plenty of plain guys like this African bird flycatcher. If you want hard to ID birds, Africa is the place to go. But we're not going to show you very many of those plain birds. After we left the Ngorongoro crater area, we went to Olduvai Gorge, and on the way we saw this pearl spotted owlet. And we saw Eurasian kestrels. Now, we didn't see like a flock of kestrels going or anything like that. It's just, you know, we kind of saw them steadily through the day. Eurasian kestrels come down to Africa in the winter. They're very northern Eurasian kestrels. Come down to winter in Africa. And our guide thought that these guys were on their way back home to go breeding. I didn't know much about Olduvai Gorge until we went. And it was the most wonderful experience I think I've had. Here I am looking out over the gorge, standing in a place where the earliest human hominids stood. This is where Mary and Louis Leakey did some of their field work. And this is where Homo habilis has been found, like 1.8 to 2 million years ago. It was awesome just to be standing there. And the next picture just shows a different view of the gorge. There was a museum on the grounds, and we didn't spend hardly any time in the museum, but there was a Homo Rudolphensis. You guys have probably forgotten that my last name is Rudolph. So I just had to show you Homo Rudolphensis. Homo Rudolphensis lived at the same time as Homo habilis, so 1.8 to 2 million years ago. And some authorities think it's the same species. The museum grounds were really birdy, which of course distracted me from actually seeing what was in the museum. And this is a Namaqua dove. They're quite a small, slim dove. And a laughing dove, which I like, and he just popped right out. He's right next to the Namaqua dove, actually. So I'm standing there taking pictures, and this purple grenadier popped up. Oh my God, this is a female. And I just love the blue spectacles. I mean, you could hardly draw a bird that was cuter. And this is the male. He's so gaudy. Just unbelievable. And now we're off to the Serengeti itself. And this is what it can look like. Of course, you know, there's different parts of the Serengeti, but this just gives you an idea of what the plain is like when they say Serengeti plain. As far as the eye can see. And here's a single acacia tree. And you can see how tempting it would be. The sun's beating down on you. You can see why animals would, you know, rest in the shade of the tree or climb up in the tree. We did see a few ostriches, not very many. Which ostriches are the largest, you know, land bird. They weigh as much as a person. They're big, and they can run really fast, which I've actually never seen. But they can go 45 miles an hour. So here's a couple of Rufous vultures. And here's a hooded vulture, and you can see he's on a carcass, there's a horn.
Yeah.
But we couldn't really see the carcass, which maybe that's just as well, you can see all the flies there. in the photo. This was at our lunch stop, we started to see Mwanza rock iguanas. I love these lizards. With the purple legs and pink top, and the hornbills like Mwanza rock iguanas also. They don't move fast enough, and those hornbills like to get them. We're driving around, and most of the hippopotamuses you see are, of course, in water. And they come out to eat at night, but we happen to see this guy moving around during the day. We stopped at a bathroom stop, and this Darnold's barbet was right by the sidewalk, and he's feeding that beetle on the sidewalk. He's giving all the wings and legs off the beetle to eat before he's gonna chow down on them. And I like the Darnold's barbet because look, all the yellow feathers are tipped in brown or black, and the brown feathers are tipped in yellow. But those are pretty fancy. It's the blue cap cordon bleu. And if you've ever been to an assisted living facility with an aviary, often they'll have a pair of these birds in there. They don't mind being in an aviary too much. They're pretty cute. The African grass rat also likes the picnic area. And we got to see cheetah. So cool. So he's sitting on a termite mound. Of course, I can't get this in a photo, but his tail is flicking, just like a cat's. He's flicking his tail. And we saw a cheetah up in a tree. Now, Terry Stevenson has lived in Kenya his entire adult life. He's never seen a cheetah in a tree. They don't climb trees. And I don't quite understand the physics of it, but they don't have retractable claws. Their claws are fixed, and it makes it hard for them to climb trees. But this guy was probably 20 feet up, and he was just fascinated. He kept putting his head down and licking his lips. It was like something had marked the tree bark, and he was trying to figure it out. And then it was time for him to come down. Well, they don't climb and they don't come down really easily. He was pretty uncertain about it, but he did make it down. And then he walked right back to the people. And here's a portrait of a cheetah showing his teeth. Okay, so this was my favorite experience. Secretary birds are raptors. They're 4 feet tall, and unlike most raptors, they walk. They have a territory that they'll explore during the day. They'll maybe walk 10 miles in a day. They have long legs. And what they do is they'll look for a lizard or something as they're walking along. And if they find a prey, they can kill it that way. And so they're pretty cool birds. They do fly. I've never seen one fly, but they nest up in trees. So if you have to be able to fly up to a tree, but typically they're walking and you see them just striding across the savannah. And then this is my favorite photo I took. He turned his head and his wings went flying, and I got the photo.
Is it display or is it?
You know, that's a really good question. I'm not sure. I don't know. So I really think it's cool when a bird that's not closely related looks like one of our birds. So this is a yellow-throated longclaw. It's in exactly the same territory as our meadowlarks. And it sure looks like a meadowlark, doesn't it? And we got to see lovebirds. Really, this was quite a trip. So the lovebirds were just like you imagine, up at the nest hole, like beat to beat, you know, lovey-dovey. And when one flew off, the other one followed. It was great. So we're driving along, and you can imagine Terry's telling us all these stories. And we see this African harrier hawk sitting on this branch. And he tells us, oh, those are really unique raptors. And he explains that they have extra long legs, which you can kind of appreciate in this photo, and their legs are double jointed. And so he tells us what they do is they go and they find a hole in a tree and they reach their leg in, and they use their double joint to reach around and try to find something that's, you know, either getting out of the heat of the day or maybe a nesting bird or something like that. And as he's telling us the story, go to the next slide. The bird does it. It was so cool. He flew up and, you know, of course, we couldn't actually see the hole he was digging into, but we could just appreciate, you know, he was reaching in and trying to get something. And then when he flies off, he doesn't have anything in his talons. So I was kind of happy about that. So we're on a certain day, we're gonna go to dinner. Of course, we've had a long day. And Kenyans don't really believe in air conditioning. A lot of the places had open air restaurants. And I'm sitting there eating my dinner. And I look up and I see, you can't see the raptor, but this cat is walking towards me, a house cat, walking towards me along the raptor. And I'm thinking, a pretty big cat. And he hops down onto this ledge. And this photo was taken with my cell phone and in the dark. It was much darker where we were eating than it looks like in this photo. And Terry looks up and saying, wow, that's not a house cat. And Terry looks up and he says, that's a common genet. So that was the only common genet we saw, but it was really fun. Here you are just eating your dinner and a wild animal comes walking by. After the Serengeti, we went to Tiangiri National Park, and we actually had a relatively unpleasant experience here. One of the members in the group was quite sick. They had to call the physician twice, so we were all worried about her. It had rained so much that we didn't see animals or birds. It was really hard to see anything at all. And there were tsetse flies. So we're sitting in the vehicle. Every time we stopped, we started getting bit. And they don't have a terrible bite, but you know, it's not any fun to be bitten all day long, which is what happened to us. But this park does have baobab trees. And the baobab trees are magnificent. They're huge. This tree is just as broad as you can imagine. And they think a tree like this is about 2,000 years old. Yeah, pretty cool. We did see some black-faced sandgrass. And they had some northern red-billed hornbills there. And this is a Vonderdeck's hornbill. And just like the Darnard's barbet, he has beaten this beetle. So I happen to get to see him do this. He's beats the beetle. So all the wings and legs are off. And then I've got this picture of him throwing the beetle up and he's gonna eat it now. And the park had quite a few lilac-throated gulls. Of course, they're such a cool bird. They perch out. And what they're doing as they're perched out is they're watching the ground. And if a lizard or a big bug goes by, they fly down and eat it. And this is the only ground hornbill we saw. He was up in a tree. So I not like this they would suggest. And we've had, if you can imagine, we've had a very long day in the car or the truck. I mean, it was just hard birding, hard to see any birds. We didn't see any animals. It rained too much. And at the very end of the day, as the sun's going down and we're starting to head back towards the hotel or whatever you call that place, this little malachite kingfisher perched up. He's just spotlighted by the sun going down. This is a little 5-inch gem, which is very small. Made the whole day worth it. So the next day we're off and, we're going to Lake Nakuru, and on the way we stop at Lake Naivasha. And we have a boat ride, which I love. I'm up for any boat ride. So this African pink pelicans come swimming right up to the boat. So I suppose he gets me out sometimes. And we saw great cormorants, and that's fun to see. And they're wide-ranging cormorants, and actually in the winter in the United States, if you go to the East Coast, you can see great cormorants. And there were a lot of pied kingfishers on the lake. And I like pied kingfishers. They're pretty confiding. They don't mind if you get close. You can see he's been successful. He's got a minnow. And the other thing about pied kingfishers is that they like to be together. So you get to see groups of pied kingfishers. And our boatman, he let out a strong whistle and threw a fish into the water. And this African fish eagle came down to get it. So that was really cool. And of course, it reminds you of bald eagle. I've taken this picture right into the bright sun. That's why I had to manipulate it quite a bit. So we get out of the boat and there's a scrum of people and all looking up. And we see this guy up in the tree. And of course, it took a minute or two to figure out what he's doing. And if you'll notice, he has no safety equipment at all, zero. No goggles, he's got a chainsaw, so no chainsaw chaps, no gloves. He's not tied in. He's just up there in the tree on the ropes. And if you go to the next picture, this was the funniest thing. That chainsaw had like 3 ropes on it. So he's not roped in all, but that chainsaw is not going anyplace. Africa has some beautiful starlings. And this is a 6-rope starling, and they're iridescent and really nice. So we arrived at Lake Nakuru, and that's one of the hypersaline lakes that are known for their flamingos. You know, you can go down to the shore, see 100,000 flamingos parading one way or the other way. Well, in my dreams, because when it was time to go down to the shore, this picture does not quite do our experience justice. The sky was lowering, it was black, and the wind was howling, maybe 60 miles an hour. And the hypersaline lakes don't have any vegetation around the edge, because the conditions aren't right to grow anything, so it's dusty. And so the wind reminded me of the Kansas song, Dust in the Wind. There was so much dust at times you could not even see the road. So we did not see any flamingos at all. But the hotel grounds were okay. They had rock hyrax. And so these are really cute little animals. They kind of remind you of bunnies. They hop around on the grass, it's obviously eating grass. And they have little rock walls at this hotel. And so he, is running in and out of the walls. And the most, to my mind, interesting thing about rock hyrax is that their closest living relatives, does anybody know the answer to this?
Elephants.
Elephants and manatees. I know, doesn't it seem unlikely? That's a real weird evolutionary branch. The grounds did have Abyssinian brush, which reminded me a lot of robins. They hop around. And then Hadada ibis, and we can't play this down. It wasn't loud enough. Yeah, you can't hear it. So Hadada ibis are really cool birds because they call. So just think of a crow calling, but like twice or 3 times as loud. And they call all the time when they fly, and they say their name, so they go, yeah, Hadada, Hadada. And they're just flying along, but it's really cool. Yeah, you can't do that. So we're off to the Kakamega Rainforest. And along the way, we see this woodland kingfisher. This is a little bit of a misleading picture, but it shows the bird so nicely, I included it. So as their name suggests, they like to live in the forest. And they actually hunt lizards and bugs instead of fish. And we saw tea plantations. And I didn't know this about Kenya, but it's a pretty large exporter of tea. All the tea is hand-picked. So if you can imagine what an army of workers it would take to hand-pick the tea. It's an $86 million export for them. Of course, tourism's like billions of dollars, but still millions. And so the tea workers actually just, if on a large plantation, will just live on the plantation their whole lives. And there might be 7,000 workers, enough schools and hospitals and shops, just like a little village. We get to the car park at our hotel or little place we stayed at the Kakamega Rainforest. And there's a crowned eagle nest in the tree. And this picture is very misleading. This bird's like in the tallest tree you can imagine, way up at the top. And crowned eagles are kind of like the harpy eagle of Africa. They're huge and they hunt monkeys and antelopes. That's how big they are. So on the next picture, this is one of their prey, little dik-diks. And dik-diks are adorable. They're only about a foot tall, so it's a very small antelope, and the crowned eagle just goes in and eats them, gobbles them up. And another thing to eat is monkeys, just like the harpy eagle. And so this is a mantled goriza that was living in the same forest as the crowned eagle. So they would make nice prey too. And the best bird we saw at the Kakamega Rainforest was this great blue turco. So again, the turcos are endemic birds. And just like the shallows turco, there were 4 of these guys, and they were just moving around in the trees because they're big, you know, chicken size. They're moving around in the trees, but being very good at hiding. And this was at dusk, so I was just happy he poked himself out enough that I didn't get a photo to show you guys. After the Kakamega Rainforest, we're getting to the end of our trip. And we visit the Rift Valley. And Terry has a coat there. He used to live in this area, the Rift Valley. And so it was a lot of fun. He had a lot of stories to tell us. And there aren't large animals down here. So we're just walking around in the evening one night. And these 3 burros kept following us. It was really funny and interfering with me. Didn't wanted to do. It was worse than having a pack of dogs. So finally, a couple boys came up and shooed them away. But we did get to see this African Hasana or Jacana. And do you see those long toes? So most of the time you see these birds walking across plants in the water. And they're picking off insects. And I've actually heard David Attenborough call them on one of the BBC lily pad trotters, which just seems like such an appropriate name. This area also had African paradise flycatchers. And despite those long tail streamers, these birds were very active. They just were out flying, catching bugs left and right. They're really pretty birds. And you can see the chestnut is really what sets it off. But there's a white more of the African paradise flycatcher. And so all the chestnut is replaced by white, so it gives them a whole different aspect. Now we're getting to the end of the trip, and as we're on our way to the last place that we stayed, we crossed the equator 5 times. As we crossed the bottom of the Rift Valley, and of course we had to stop and take a picture. We also stopped and visited a friend of Terry's. So Terry's lived in Kenya a long time, he's my age, and he's mentored a lot of Kenyans in his time into being active in bird watching. And so you can see David has binoculars, and Terry and he stopped, and, we stopped and talked to David, and David had to show us his special bird. So we hiked down, and here's a Cape Eagle owl that's nesting on a rock wall on his little farm. That was fun to see. So the last place we stayed, it is in the Aberdeen Mountains, and it's called the Ark. And what it is a hotel that's built right by a waterfall. And the whole front and side of the hotel has large windows. There's a porch you can sit out on, there's a blind, and you're confined to the hotel. But you get to experience, some of the wildlife. So this is a Defasa water buck coming in to drink. And the pond has yellow-billed ducks. And here's a bush buck. And there were quite a few bush buck around the Ark. And this is another prey for the crown people. And I'm down in the blind, which was at eye level, and this warthog went running right by me. And this place is known for its giant forest hogs. So giant forest hogs are very hard to see normally. They're shy and they don't come out. And yet they'll come out in the open or come down to drink. And so it's fun to get this little photo of a mom, dad, and baby. And this is almost the end of my talk. And this is the last animal we got to see. Isn't that cool? But it was a leopard, the only leopard we saw. And so the morning that we're getting ready to go back to Nairobi, this leopard comes out and sits by the bush as the sun's coming up. This way it's spotlighted like that. So it was very fun way to end the trip. There's one more slide. Sun going down. This is at the Ngorongoro crater. And I'm not sure I can see my figures, but I'll see if I can get some light on it. So in 18 days in Kenya and Tanzania, we saw 432 species of birds and 46 species of mammals. So it was quite an adventure. And that's the end of my talk. If anybody has any questions or comments, I'm happy to try to answer them.
What time of year were you there?
March. No. Oh, no, completely wild. No, we're in the Ark, in the hotel. Yeah. Yeah, pretty cool. I've actually, been to Africa before, and I've seen, have leopards, going up and down trees, they hang their prey up in the trees. They'll walk right by you, people like that cheetah did. They'll walk right by you. No, this was taken at the hotel. Oh, thank you so much. I really enjoyed a lot. Yeah. I'm very uncoordinated. You probably already realize this, but I'm the most uncoordinated person. So if I get a good photo, I'm so happy. Well, it was a fun trip. We had a small group of people. I knew the guide already.
Great pictures of what they have.
Well, yeah, yeah.
They're great. They have years ago, they had an issue with invasive species. How is it now? Still,
So maybe like, where we ate lunch, then after we drove maybe like a eighth of the crater. That's that bad invasive species. Yeah. Mhm. Any place you go in Africa, like that one place where it rained an unusual amount, in the Kakamega rainforest, it was bone dry. And in the Rift Valley lakes have gone up 45 feet. And if you can imagine, the villagers are all around the lake, so it's made like 100,000 people homeless. So, yeah, almost any place you go, things are going on. Yeah. Anything else?
where's your next trip?
Oh, this is really cool. I'm going to central Mexico with guides I know and other participants I know. And we're gonna be birding, but we're also going to the central mountains where the monarchs migrate. So I'm gonna get to see the migrating monarch. And then we're gonna go to the Baja Peninsula and get to see the gray whale migrate. Hopefully, that's the plan. Yeah. No, I was so nervous. I have fussed over this endlessly.
How many things you should do this again for other places?
Thank you, Linda. This is wonderful. Just sharing your excitement and all those interesting details about the birds and all the things you were saying. It's just great. And you should keep this going. Just put her on our list.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Plenty of treats back there. And, any other comments? Thank you for coming next month. We'll look forward to having